Give me a better idea of exactly what your thoughts are on Manglin Pillay's article.
Good morning to everybody, and thanks so much for having me this morning. I'm going to give you the nice version because the other version is actually just, it's not fit for TV. So honestly, I think that it's 2018 and this kind of sexist, misogynistic rhetoric has no place in society. And while unfortunate truth is that there are people that share his views, it doesn't have any place in our country, in our constitution, or in our industry. And that leadership can be so bold as to pen something like this is actually just a travesty.
Now, I did read that article, Nadia, and you know, albeit it was quite late at night when I did read it, when it was sent to me by, I have a WhatsApp group of women, and they shared this saying, can you believe what this person is saying? I battled to understand exactly what his point was, but what I did pick out were things like he spoke about men's ability to make decisions under pressure and to deal with stress, and suggesting what I thought was men being better at dealing with stress. Now, you're a woman in engineering. I mean, surely that is so far from the truth.
It's completely off the mark. And, you know, so some of the comments that he was making is that, you know, women are not in executive positions because we just don't have what it takes. And that he doesn't understand this whole notion of having to work twice as hard to get the recognition. He hasn't seen the latest stats on pay gaps. You know, in pay parity in this country and around the world, where women get paid 25% to 40% less than their male counterparts for doing the same job, that you have to constantly prove yourself within this industry. So he really just doesn't get it. And it's also just deeply offensive to just put women in this box that says, actually, you know, you should just be caregivers because you're good at that, and you should just be mothers and have babies, and that's it. Like, engineering is too tough for you. And I think, you know, that kind of rhetoric doesn't actually hold well for today's society. And I actually made this example, and I did this kind of in a satirical way, and I said, well, you know, a lot of people don't understand the commotion about this, you know, what this article is. And I said, well, think about it from a different perspective. So think about if I penned an article that said, you know, men, if I look at the World Economic Forum, they say the skills of the future is going to be empathy, it's going to be teamwork, it's going to be communication skills, and men, you just don't have those kind of skills, so therefore you shouldn't even be going into the fourth industrial revolution skill set. You should just, you know, do what is naturally for men, you know, lifting heavy things. And, you know, that's deeply offensive to men. It actually just shrinks you down into some, you know, very minuscule ability based on kind of what society norms tell you. And for us, that's really the crux of the matter is that, you know, the engineering industry requires diverse set of skills, a diverse set of thinking to be able to do problem solving. And women are working really hard at the top of their game. I mean, for us, for example, when he says women are not ambitious enough, you know, we've taken our company to 17 countries around the world, not just in Africa, but literally from Colombia and the US all the way to Australia, right? So don't come and tell me that women aren't ambitious. They are. And this is why women are leaving the industry, right? Because there's this rhetoric, you know, you get tired of actually fighting the system. And so you go to industries like banking or management consulting or somewhere else where they actually appreciate and value the skill set that you bring.
Yeah, and it is a pity, Nadia, that we have to today sort of have to highlight what women actually bring or defend and say why women should be in engineering and try to justify that. But I'd like you to give us some insight as to all of these things that he's highlighted. Women actually bring a lot more. The role of women in engineering. I mean, we're not just talking, you know, lifting cars and changing tires, for example. There's so much more to all of that.
Yes, and I mean, I feel like people really don't understand what engineering is. Yeah. I always say engineering is not about heavy lifting. I mean, if you ask me, Nadia, you are a civil engineer, go and, you know, build the building. I mean, that's not what I do, right? The builders build the building. We actually design it. So a lot of it is actually mental work. And it's brain power. It's being able to apply yourself to a problem and figuring out a solution, whether it's people-orientated, whether it's new technology, when it's flying cars, whatever, right? And anybody can do that as long as you have, you know, the application and the capacity to do so. And it's really, you know, irrespective of gender. And the article he quotes, you know, where he says, you know, even in developed countries, women aren't choosing STEM. In fact, in those developed countries, girls are actually doing better at STEM subjects than boys are doing. And in the Middle East, for example, they actually have a higher rate of females going and studying engineering and technology. And you can start to see how the economies are growing, how the centers of innovation are booming. And that's because, for example, in Dubai, 1 in 3 startups have a female engineer on the team, right? So, you know, the evidence around the world is completely different and contrary to what he's put in his article.
Yeah. And Naadiya, very quickly for us, just to wrap it up, how are you taking this up?
So we've put out a petition, and within 24 hours, we've had over 1,100 signatures. This morning, there is a meeting with Saice, and we've asked for Saice to actually take a strong stance and actually let him go. And that's because it sets a precedent that such kinds of discussions, such kind of rhetoric, and such kinds of sexist commentary, it has no place in South Africa or within the engineering industry. And it's actually a step in the right direction for true transformation. And Saice needs to look really long and hard at itself, because this is not an isolated incident, because somebody allowed this article to be published, right? He didn't just pen it himself. And so nobody along the way said, hey, wait, this is completely sexist, why are we publishing it? So I think there should be a lot of introspection for Saice themselves this morning, and it needs to start with changing its leadership.